Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's Digital Airstrike Facebook Live. And today, it's a great one. We're going to be talking about our industry. We got new buyers, new models, new normal. But is this a new industry? Well, we're going to find out. My name is Eliana Raggio. I'll be your moderator today. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to the guy who has all the answers. Tyson Jominy. He's the Vice President of Data and Analytics at JD Power. He advises OEMs on pricing and incentives for new and used car sales. And prior to joining JD Power in 2009, Tyson held positions at Ford Motor Company and Nissan North America. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Tyson, or as I like to call you, the dude with the data. We have a lot to cover, not a lot of time to do it. So if you're okay, Tyson, we'll get right into it if that's all right.
Yeah, let's roll.
All right, cool. All right, so Tyson, this isn't the first time you've done a Facebook Live with me. I love talking to you. You have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the auto industry. And the reason I asked you to do this broadcast is because you have all this incredible data and insights, and you really know what's coming down the pike. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about where we are as an industry right now and where you think we're headed.
Well, appreciate you having me back here. Always exciting for us to talk. We have such a great time here, and we're going to have a good time here today as well. I talk about car sales, and that's my career. That's my life. And it's like we don't have any cars to sell. I mean, what do I have to talk about, right? I think we all know inventories are very low. In fact, record low inventory of all time. It's been doing it for 5 months. Production is the biggest challenge in the industry, and because we can't get enough cars, it's leading to all kinds of other great stories I want to talk about. But it's all kind of converging at the same time. While all this is going on, as you mentioned, we're getting new buyer groups are becoming the prevalent buyer group in the market, and we're selling new kinds of vehicles in new ways, and it's all happening at once. We've never seen change like this ever, and it's so exciting.
I know, it's like we're going through a renaissance. It's a little painful. I'm not going to lie. It's been a little painful for about 18 months or so. But yeah, a lot of things are changing in the industry, not the least of which is how consumers are now shopping for cars. Because of COVID, and we talked about this the last time you were on, Tyson, is that digital retailing is now a thing. That's how consumers want to buy a car. They want to do most of it or almost all of it online before they ever step foot in a dealership, or whether they choose to step foot in a dealership or not. But there's a lot of other things that are happening too. The low inventory, the chip shortage, we're going to get into how long you think this is going to last. But since you were on the show last time, do you think we've gotten better as an industry, or we're just trying to keep our heads above water?
I mean, the situation is fantastic for retailers right now. It's fantastic for automakers, and so who isn't it great for? Well, maybe it's not the greatest for consumers. But even then, there's still large demand. I mean, demand far is outpacing sales right now. In fact, I would introduce the concept that demand and sales have been completely decoupled right now. So it's really hard to say that demand is low because it's not. It's so high. And so things are going well for nearly everyone. And even consumers have a lot of tailwinds. I mean, low interest rates, high trade-in values. That's helped keeping some of these transaction prices in check that we'll talk about. So there's so much going on right now. And I mean, really, it all begins with the production side of the business.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I'm sure you know because you watch all my broadcasts, Tyson. So a couple weeks ago, I had the pleasure of talking with Bob Lanham from Facebook. He's the head of automotive retail over at Facebook. And one of the things that he said, which was kind of an eyebrow raiser, but he's right, is that, and I think I'm going to try and quote this, that people are willing to pay a premium for cars, and we're talking over MSRP, and that these last few months have proven that out because of the low inventory. But that's not the only thing that low inventory has done to change the auto industry. There's a lot of other things at play here that, I just never thought. I don't know if you did, Tyson, because you've been in the auto industry a long time as well. I never thought we would see the day when price was not like issue number 1, 2, or 3. That's not the objection people have. Like, people are now being conditioned, hey, if you want a car, be prepared to pay. But there's other things that they're thinking about too. That consumer demand is high, but inventory is low. But they're doing things differently as consumers that, honestly, I'm surprised that we're seeing in 2021. I think it's changing the way, not just the way they shop, but the concessions that they're kind of giving dealers on, okay, you don't have the car now. Can we pre-order the car? I think you said the other day they're even driving further to buy the car. Let's talk a little bit about the trends that you're seeing now that, honestly, I never thought we would see, at least.
I mean, that's a 30-minute answer to that question. I mean, because it's right. So one thing we are seeing for sure, to your last point, is that consumers are driving far to find vehicles. As a matter of fact, usually consumers want to buy it within 10 miles or so of their house. That's really not possible now. We're seeing that the shift is toward that 10 to 50 mile range, but consumers that are driving 50 miles or more to buy a car is up 33% from 2019. We were talking about consumers going very long distances to find what they're looking for. And even consumers in that 10 to 50 mile range, that's up several percentage points as well. And so we're seeing this shift. It's 10 miles that consumers are driving further than they were before to buy their vehicle. And they're doing it because inventory is tight, and they are doing their shopping online. They are doing things digitally. They're trying to find the vehicle that they want, and they're finding it perhaps much further away, out of their PMA, out of their market, and far away. Whereas before they were able to find something much closer to home. And again, it's driven by, there's not a lot of inventory out there. So they're searching far and wide. At the same time, we are asking consumers, order things online. And, when I talk a lot to retailers, I'm telling them, in your advertising, talk about your ability to find vehicles, because we don't need consumers driving 50 miles away. You guys got that great insight to what's coming, what's in your pipeline of vehicles arriving, and you use that knowledge and communicate that to consumers and try to keep them closer to home. So all that's going on, at the same time that 84% of consumers right now are paying near or above MSRP. So that, the information that you're getting from other parts of the industry, it's true. Consumers are willing to pay that because 43% of cars are turning in under 7 days. So
wow.
if you don't want the car, and if you're not willing to pay above MSRP, the next person right behind you in line they'll be there, and they're going to do it.
Holy moly. So this is actually working out in a dealer's favor for how long? Because this has to be, although consumers are making concessions, they're not haggling over price. And yeah, they might even be willing to wait 3, 4, 6 weeks to pre-order their car. They might. But would they just say, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to buy that car. I'm going to go look at this other make and model over here. Let's talk a little bit about brand loyalty. I feel like JD Power is the expert in that, right? So let's talk a little bit about brand loyalty. What are you seeing out there? What are the kinds of trends that you're seeing when it comes to brand loyalty? Are consumers jumping ship on longstanding brands and trying something new?
In short, no. I mean, loyalty is going up. As a matter of fact, industry loyalty is up over a point this past year in our automotive brand loyalty study that we put out over summer. It's now to 49.5%. We always kind of go, oh, it's about 50%. Well, we're almost there. So it's been going up, but it's going up even faster on the premium side than even the mainstream side. So Subaru, Toyota, and Honda continue to do very well. Subaru and Toyota both have loyalty over 60%. Honda right there with them. And on the premium side, though, loyalty is always a bit lower, but that's gone up, even faster, almost a 2-point gain in loyalty this year. So what's going on? I mean, cars are, of course, better, higher quality, and consumers are more satisfied. The JD Power surveys tell us that things are getting better and consumers like their vehicles more. But at the same time, this other dimension we're talking about, which it's hard to find what you're looking for out there as a consumer. So consumers are working closer with dealers than they've worked before. And what dealer are you really going to work closely with? Well, it's the one that brought you to the dance, right? And they're going home with their dance partner that got them their last car. And so we're seeing loyalty go up. I mean, we're seeing some some crazy moves from brands like Volvo and Volkswagen, and Mazda and others that are taking 4, 5, 6 percentage points increase in loyalty in 1 year alone. So a big shout out to those dealer bodies that are doing a fantastic job.
Wow, that is a huge jump. My goodness. We did have a comment that came in from Josh. Hey, Josh, so glad you could check in with us. Josh says, I think the shortage has made the dealers put less importance on price. Interesting. The customer experience is number one, as it should be. And even the JD Power surveys in the past showed that price was never really that important when surveyed after the sale, even though it was the most important through the lens of the salesperson. Great insight, Josh. Thank you so much for that. So, customer experience, and actually, that was something else that Bob Lanham said. He's like, the car is no longer the star, is what he said. I mean, dealers had to change their messaging. Don't you agree, Tyson? And they should. It was always, we have the lowest price, or we have the biggest inventory. Oh, I don't think anyone can say that right now. But
Yeah.
what they can say is, we have the best car buying experience. And then dealers show up and make it the best car buying experience. Right, Tyson?
You have to right now. I mean, if you can't advertise the deal, you can't advertise, the rows and rows of trucks that you have. You have to focus on being better with the customer experience at dealerships. There's really no other way to do it. But at the same time, I mean, price is not really being talked about because it's gone up, and consumers don't have a lot of negotiating power right now. I'm quite honestly, they're lucky to get the car that they found, and they're happy, and they take it and they go home. Right now consumers are having to make, in some cases, compromises. Color is a clear one. In 2019, black, white, and silver used to be 60% of sales. Black, white, and gray. Now black, white, and gray are 68% of sales. So an 8 percentage point change in just 2 years. Which is definitely a convergence of available colors. I hope you like grayscale, because your yellows and oranges and browns and this going to be nearly impossible to find. Likewise, manual transmissions and all kinds of other more esoteric options are going to be very hard to locate these days.
I have to tell you, my husband's friend, it's on topic. Don't worry. My husband's friend, he was looking for a silver car, couldn't find what he wanted. He wound up getting a bright yellow car. And I was like, dude, this is so not you. He's like, it's growing on me. It's totally growing on me. Okay. So this is just one example of a consumer that I never thought, but he's not a bright yellow dude. I'm telling you right now. Okay. So, since people are making concessions, but some people are jumping ship, and there's been that change, let's talk about how the market share has changed a little bit. And interestingly enough, you had said something the other day, because I wrote it down. I wanted to make sure I brought it up again. You said Toyota fared, up until now, pretty well on this chip shortage thing. I'd like to just dive into it just a little bit and explain why Toyota did such a good job, because it's not like they had an inside track on chips.
No, I don't think anybody knows. I mean, if there's the computer chips buried out in the desert somewhere with ET video game cartridges, that company that finds those would be doing really well right now. Toyota didn't necessarily have an inside line to it, but Toyota is doing very well this year. They're basically the number one selling brand now in the industry, and they're gaining steam. And they're doing it because Toyota dealers are used to operating with very low inventories. That's sort of their modus operandi, is to have few units on the ground. And so as the industry has fallen from the mid 60s of day supply down to the low 20s, it causes a lot of change, particularly for high volume brands that would stack a lot of vehicles on dealer lots and sell from inventory. That isn't where Toyota was. I mean, they were closer to 40, and so the dealers are used to operating with very few vehicles. Likewise with Subaru, dealerships that are used to that very fast velocity, whereas it's a bit of a change for some of the other automakers. So Toyota has been doing very well. Another brand that is showing up kind of everywhere all of a sudden, and it's kind of a surprising till you think about the products they have. Kia is doing fantastic this year. They're showing up on a number of markets as moving very quickly and outpacing their national and regional share. Of course, they've got the new Telluride, which is just an amazing SUV. But you look up and down their portfolio, and you can't make an argument that there's a bad product in there.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And they have. I've been hearing a lot about Kia in the news, and they've been, people are starting to really like that brand. Okay. So, but I'm really excited to talk about this next topic because, but, well, look, I feel like 2020 and 2021 has been just one change after another. But this change was huge, a big change in the demographics of car shoppers. So let's talk about it because I feel like you skipped over Gen X, Y, and Z, and millennials have now overtaken baby boomers as the largest segment of new car buyers. What does that mean for dealers? Let's get into it. What do we know about
Yeah.
millennials?
Yeah, well, I mean, we know that the industry was afraid of this group for a really long time. I mean, when I was attending conferences 10 years ago, it was like, oh no, they hate cars. They prefer a phone to a car. They're never going to buy cars. So we were really afraid of them for some reason. I'm a Gen Xer, so I maybe perhaps understand them. Yeah, right. We're both Gen X here. I mean, it's just the next generation for us. And the reality is they were delayed in getting started, high student loan debts and lack of intergenerational wealth transfer and high rents and all kinds of reasons why they couldn't get their feet under the ground, not to mention they came of age, right at the Great Recession. But now they've done the American thing, right? They've grown up, they've coupled, they've moved to the suburbs, they've procreated, and they go to soccer games on Saturdays just like every generation before them. I mean, it's just they did the same thing. It just took a while to get there, and now they're the number one buying group. And it happened last year in April of 2020, right in the peak of coronavirus. And we were like, it's just a blip. We'll ignore it because baby boomers are just staying at home for health reasons. That makes sense. Well, right now, millennials this past month are 38% of sales. Baby boomers were 26%. So I mean, just a wide gap has opened up between millennials and baby boomers. So it's not something that was temporary and going away. It is a permanent change. It's here to stay. It's the first generational shift we've seen in the auto industry, and I mean, call it 50 years.
Wow. Okay, but seriously, what do they want? Okay, this is the generation that grew up with affordable laptops and cell phones on their hips. I mean, this is a much different generation than all the ones before. As we all say that about every generation, but millennials in particular grew up in that Amazon phase. They don't know what it's like not to have a laptop or not to have a cell phone. So, is the car buying experience the number one thing that millennials look for, because it seems to be a generation who wants to spend their money with businesses who think the same way, that join in their own morality, or it's not just about price, like Josh had said before. Oh, somebody wrote and he says, Peter wrote and he says, we crave instant gratification. I'm with you, Pete.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it dovetails nicely to our earlier conversation. I mean, millennials, they will expect a better customer experience. They'll demand a better customer experience. They're not a generation that says, hey, I want to go spend 5-6 hours in a dealership. They'll do their homework. They'll be online. They'll be the ones that go to Carvana and CarNow and Vroom and others and get multiple quotes on their trade-in before they go anywhere. And they have the expectation of a more seamless experience than perhaps the older generations. Now, it works out very well because coronavirus forced us as an industry to get digital, to have those assets in place. It's the only way we could have done business last year.
Right.
And we did it at the same time that millennials took over it. How awesome is that? I mean, it's like at the exact minute that we needed the infrastructure, it was there, and we were able to match those two together. Millennials are the number one buying demographic in 17 of the 27 segments that we track. I mean, everything from large pickup through compact SUVs, 3-row crossovers, minivans, all the lifestyle segments. Millennials dominate. So if you want to be successful in this market, you need to find a way to reach this group.
And we have to do that by talking about the car buying experience and getting into the mindset of the millennial car buyer. But let's just stop a little bit here, okay? So car buyers are skewing younger, but car prices have never been higher. And we're talking for both new and used. And I mean, gosh, it's hard to find a car for under $40,000 right now. I think the average price, I think I read was over 45,000 last year, right? So let's talk about how popular this price range is for this large set of buyers right now. But this seems quite expensive for that young set of buyers, no?
Yeah, it does. Now, prices are up, but payments haven't followed nearly to the same extent. So while prices for the year are up about 17% on average year to date, payments are only up 8% because of some of these other factors that are in the marketplace, such as low interest rates and higher trade-in values are helping to offset some of the price gains. So therefore, it is possible for younger, less affluent consumers to be in the market because the bottom line is not quite the same as the top line when it comes to payment. But that said, one of the dynamics that we see is like Austin is one of the fastest growing markets in the country. And Austin, we know it tends to be a more tech focused market with a younger demographic. And so you kind of think of Austin as sort of the prototypical what's going on right now in the marketplace. You're getting a lot of younger affluent buyers in the market at the same time. And even that kind of breaks my brain a bit, thinking about younger consumers having this amount of money to go out and spend it on new cars. I mean, that was never something in the past. Young consumers were always went hand in hand with subprime loans. And that is the exact opposite of what's going on right now.
Good for them. Okay. Do you have a line on which cars are popular with buyers right now in this market? I know you had mentioned the Telluride, if you can get your hands on one,
Right.
but are there some cars that are just doing better than others that consumers are actually trying to hunt down?
Yeah, I've got some good news for people with deep pockets. I mean, the highest end of the market, actually, maybe it's bad news because you can't find any of these vehicles. I mean, there's such hot demand. Above $80,000, we've seen sales growth of 140% versus 2019 at the highest end of the market. I'm talking about buyers of the new Corvette, new Escalade, new 911, new Cayenne. I mean, good problems to have, right? Those buyers are seeing some very in demand. You know, the fastest turning body style right now, and I can't even believe I would say these words, wagons. Wagons are the fastest turning body style right now. I know it, right? It's crazy. And convertibles are turning quickly.
Yes.
But that's just because, I mean, we're after peak convertible season now, right? There's none left. And at this, we should have had more convertibles on the ground, but we didn't have them this year because of production issues. But anyway, these things are turning really quickly, so it's going to be hard to find. Again, it's the fun vehicles. It's the the slightly left of center kind of ideas like wagons and convertibles and coupes and yellow cars and orange cars. It's going to be really hard to find those right now. They're turning so quickly, and we didn't have a lot of them to begin with, like high end cars. Good news, there still are, some compact SUVs you can buy. There's a lot of Jeeps out there. Grand Cherokee, Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer. Jeep has done a fantastic job of launching those trio of three-row products that they just came out with. They've got a lot of inventory of those out there. So you can find it. It's just going to take maybe a little legwork to do so.
Now, audience, do you see how his eyes light up when he talks about cars? I know, it's so cute, isn't it? Want to see his eyes really light up? Let's talk about the hottest car segment out there. I feel like every big news story has an OEM that has now released another electric vehicle. They are making all the news headlines. I swear, every week there's another OEM that's released. And why? Why? I mean, aside from digital retailing and inventory and millennials, electric vehicles has been huge, even electric trucks. So many new releases that are about to hit the market. And is that what millennials want to see? And who's going to win the EV war is really what we all want to know, because there's so many good ones coming out. Like, I was excited. Hummer came back out with an electric version. I'm glad, because I didn't want to see the Hummer leave, but here they are with an electric version. We have electric trucks entering the market. Tyson, talk to me. What are you excited about?
Is it too late to back up and say, I thought you were going to say the hottest segments, minivans? You really want to
No,
see me get excited? We can
no,
talk about
no.
minivans for the next 30 minutes.
I know you
No.
love minivans. It's not right, man. It's a violation.
No. So EVs, I mean, right. How much ink has been spilled and how many words have been said about EVs already in this country? And I'll just, add one more and a quick story on it. This past December, with very little fanfare, we celebrated 10 years of EVs in the US market. I mean, going all the way back to the launch of the Nissan Leaf in December 2010. EVs have been in the market for 10 years. And during that time, share has gone from 0 to about 2%. Now, just in the past year alone, since that point, EVs have basically gone from 2 to 3% in 1 year. So the curve is starting to shift, starting to hockey stick higher. And it's going up, and it's going up because we're offering more of them, particularly in segments that people want to buy in. And I'll give all the credit here to Model Y and Ford Mustang Mach-E. Those two vehicles really leading the way forward because they're SUVs. That's what we want to buy. And they don't cost all that much. I mean, they're not $80,000. They're still expensive, but this is the first time that we're really targeting Americans with the kind of vehicle that they want to buy with an EV. I mean, prior to this, we put EVs in hatchbacks. Entry level. Americans don't want entry level hatchbacks. We didn't want them with ICE. We don't want them with EV. Like, why would we put them in there? Well, because they were cheap, and we thought that was the way to do it. Well, now we're putting them not just in the high-end performance like Tesla, but in the mainstream segments. And I think the Ford F-150 Lightning launch is going to be the pivotal moment for EVs in the United States.
Wow. Big words from the dude with the data. All right, people, you heard it here first. I'm actually really excited about the Lightning. We'll see. I'm looking forward to a test drive on any one of these hot vehicles. The Lyric looks great. Like I said, I want to see that electric Hummer. So there's a lot to be excited about on the electric vehicle front. Who knows? Maybe in a year, you and I'll be talking again about electric vehicles, and it'll be up near the 5 or 7% mark. We'll see. I think this is definitely the way it's going to turn, especially since millennials seem to be a bit more in tune with saving the environment than us Gen Xers, right?
Right, exactly.
We'll see. All right. So let's get down to brass tacks, because here we go. This is really what I brought you for. Okay. So we are at the beginning, right at the beginning of Q4. And typically, the very, very end of the year is when dealers do a lot of selling. I mean, you've seen those commercials where people buy cars and they give it as a gift on the commercial. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be happening this year, but, those last, let's call it 6 weeks or so of the year, there's typically a lot of sales of cars, and that really puts us in the black over here in the auto industry. But we have so much low inventory and very few OEM incentives that are out there right now. So what do you think we should expect to see bringing us to the end of this year, to the end of Q4?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The very end of Q4, I mean, really from Thanksgiving, Black Friday through New Year's, tends to be one of the biggest selling periods of the entire year, particularly for premium vehicles and a lot of times for pickup trucks. That tends to end the year very well. Unfortunately, I don't see any significant change in our inventory position. We are still seeing automakers kind of backing down production statements and saying that the chip shortage is still going on. And let's be honest, it's not just chips. It's chips, and it's resin for paint, and it's tires, and it's wiring harnesses, and it's on and on and on, because the global supply chain remains stressed, and it's going to until the world gets its arms around the COVID situation. I mean, one person getting the COVID at one plant in Malaysia that makes wiring harnesses brought down an entire automaker and basically took out a month of production. And we will expect to see more of that for the time being. So Q4, it's going to be a lot like it is right now. I mean, we have inventory on the ground of about 850 to 900,000 units, and that's it. Our sales pace remains north of that, and it's been that way for 5 months, that our retail sales have been outpacing our retail inventory. So we're selling through everything in 3 to 3.5 weeks. And that's going to continue throughout the end of this year. And so it's going to put some pressure on the end of year performance, because we don't have the units on the ground, and we don't have the increased production coming that is going to really lift that part of the year. So I don't expect to see many Redbow advertisements. I've never gotten a car as a gift. It sounds great.
I'm ready. Give me one.
I mean, if my wife is watching, right now, please honey, find me a car with a bow on it. It'd be great. But
He likes minivans. You probably already knew that.
well, we got rid of our minivan. She won't go back to another minivan. And my kids, being in high school, would be mortified of me now driving one. But I love them. They're fantastic. I don't see a great end to the year. And quite honestly, I mean, if we want to talk about next year as well as that sort of, where it's going, I don't see much of a change coming until at least Q4.
Wow. Okay, so let's real fast so people can get an idea of where we stand right now. Let's talk about what SAR did we see in 2019? What did we see in 2020? And what do you think we're going to wind up seeing at the end of 2021 as an auto industry?
So we were 17 million in 19. We fell to 15.5 million last year. So we lost 2.5 million sales last year. Sorry, 14.5 million. Sorry. Bad math.
Math is
14,
hard.
The math. I was told there would be no math today. So we lost 2.5 million to 14.5 million. This year, fingers crossed, it will start with a 16, but it is likely to end with a 15 handle at the front of the number for 21. I just don't think we've got the inventory to get to 16 million this year. So let's call it, mid to upper 15s this year. And we are hopeful for next year getting back into the 16s. But again, it is entirely dependent on production at this point to do that. And there's still a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, we're basically beholden to anyone who is in that supply chain that's not in the United States, which is a lot. We get a lot of parts that are not made in the United States, everything from seats to mainframes. So I get it. All right. So let's talk about 2022 because, and to really drive this point home, just a couple days ago, Cox Automotive reported that new vehicle inventories in the United States have fallen below the 1 million vehicle threshold and stand at their lowest point since at least 1985. That is very disheartening. And as you had said just a few moments ago, the estimate of available inventory is right around that 900,000 mark, which is about a 30-day supply. And that's for all OEMs across the board. So this inventory problem isn't going to go away anytime soon, is it, Tyson? What are you expecting to see in 2022? You think it's going to last through 2022?
Yeah, I may have said I may not. The good news is that inventory can't hurt us anymore because it's so low, because it's factored in. And what we saw over the past 5 months in April, the sales pace was an 18.4 million SAR, the fourth highest we ever had in the industry. I mean, up there with some of the most studied and interesting periods of our lives, being the Keep America Rolling campaign after 9/11, being the GM employee pricing for all campaign a few years later. Those are the only times that the SAR was better than it was in April. And it fell from there to where it is today at 12.2 in September. That was below September of 2008 SAR. That's the month that we actually saw Lehman Brothers collapse. And so things now went from the highest ever to Lehman Brothers recessionary volumes very quickly. And that was the inventory impact there. The good news is inventory isn't going to hurt us anymore. The bad news is we're not going to get a lot of inventory for basically till Q4 end of next year because we lost 2.5 million sales last year. Because we're losing 2 million sales this year, we've got over 4 million consumers sitting on the sideline waiting for vehicles to come in. I mean, vehicles are turning, as mentioned, in under a week, 43% of cars are being sold in under a week right now. So as soon as things come in, they go out. We've got fleet customers waiting for cars. We've got retail customers. And so inventory isn't going to grow, but the production pace will determine what our sales pace is next year. We're hopeful it'll get back up to 16. There's demand out there for in excess of 18 million. It could be the biggest year we ever had, but nobody thinks we've got the production to meet that level of demand.
And it's nothing that we can do. I mean, we're kind of beholden to it. I don't know that we can turn this negative into a positive, but we're going to try, right?
Everyone's making more money. I mean, automakers, the OEMs are making money. Dealers are making $4,700 per every new vehicle they sell. They're making $3,700 every used vehicle they sell.
And just to remind people what it was like, because they never used to make that much on new vehicle sales. It was under $500 for the last, 5-6 years on new vehicle sales?
Right. On front end gross was under $500 for most of the past decade. I mean, it's been very low, and now they're making on the front end gross about $3,700 on the front end gross alone, making another thousand or so on the F&I office, the finance and insurance part of the sales ops. But I mean, they're making a lot of money. Automakers making a lot of money. Everybody sees the silver lining. We kind of want these times to continue. It's just we wish we had more cars. So that the total dollars that dealers are now making is falling because the volumes are getting so low. So even as the per unit is up, the total dollars that consumers are spending is starting to come down because the volume isn't there to keep the pace. So there's a lot of good news out there. I mean, you're an automaker right now, and the industry is changing rapidly, and EVs are catching on, and consumers are starting to want those. At the same time, you're getting some very high dollars. I mean, the total dollars that consumers spend in the market is up 20% from 2019. So the market is just growing bonkers, and that's creating a lot of profit for automakers to reinvest in EVs and the electrified future.
I mean, it sounds great. Couple questions, and then we got to close out the show.
Okay.
But low, and this is ridiculously low inventory. But do you think, because we've heard ruminations from some OEMs, some people at OEMs who are saying, yeah, I don't know that we're ever going to go back to that 90 plus day inventory. This is kind of working out well for us. I mean, 30 days is a little lean, but do you think that OEMs are going to not go back to that 60, 70, 90 day inventory? If they could wave a magic wand, what do you think they do?
Everybody would like to keep most of these dynamics if possible. But however, the temptation is there because it's a fixed asset industry, and we have to cover the fixed cost. Therefore, we need the volume to cover those costs. So the temptation's always there to produce more units than necessary. And so while we're making great proclamations, and while I want to believe that we are going to change, it's going to be hard to hold that line, particularly when your dealership is trying to move to a pull demand system and get consumers to order. And right across the street is a truck brand that has 60, 70 day supply, and there's trucks there that consumers can go home today. So that's where the real rub will start to come in, is when some behave one way and some go a different way. But truthfully, Eliana, the longer this lasts, the greater the odds are that we have something permanently changing in our industry. And we're saying to the end of 22, that's 3 years. That's a lot of executive turnover and learning, and those that were kind of on the front lines of this, moving up and becoming management and wanting to do things differently forever. So the longer it goes on, the greater the chance that we will see some very structural changes in this industry.
Wise words, Tyson Jominy. All right, last question, and then we got to close out the show. Let's just get to it. What advice would you give to dealers being in this industry the way it is right now, and probably will be for the foreseeable 12 months or so? What can dealers do?
Yeah, so demand, again, far exceeds supply. So we know that. We're seeing that in the transaction prices. We're seeing that in the consumer willingness to pay above MSRP. So we know that the demand is there. So my advice really is to stay in market, to stay visible in advertising. You may not have the cars to sell, but consumers know that, and they're looking for somebody to partner with. And so to be out there telling consumers to work with you, and if they don't find something on your lot, you can find it. It may be coming in. You have greater visibility to what is out there than consumers do. So continue to work with them. But again, this is a new buyer. This is a millennial market. They are expecting different things. You've already invested in digital retailing. Continue down that road, because this is what is going to be expected. It's not a blip. This is the way forward for consumers and dealers right now. So continue down the digital road and stay visible, stay in market, and be ready to work with consumers to find what they need.
Yeah, millennials are on social media a lot. They do read consumer reviews, so make sure your reviews for your business are up to date and fantastic, and as close to 5 stars as possible. I think millennials also really do care about the experience. So make sure you do a lot more brand advertising because, I mean, look, let's be honest, you're not talking about how many cars you have on your lot, right? Or best price. So really put out there that you are the brand that they should be coming after. And yeah, I love that banner. Best consumer experience will always win. Excellent, excellent. Great advice, Tyson. Thank you so much. It's not about the car, it's about the people and the experience. So that's what they're looking for. So give it to them. Tyson, anything else you forgot to tell my peoples?
No, I mean that's it. We hit it all. So
I
I
think we did.
appreciate you having me back on here. Always a lot of fun.
Always a lot of fun. Next time, we're going to get those margaritas delivered like you talked about in the last time you were here. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Tyson Jominy from JD Power. What a great conversation. And yeah, don't worry. I'm going to have him back again. I don't know when, but he's coming back. As a matter of fact, you can find out all of our upcoming broadcasts at digitalairstrike.com/webinars. And by the way, I actually have Tyson Jominy coming back for an upcoming bestride.com Facebook Live. And Tyson is going to be schooling car shoppers on 5 tips that'll help them score the best experience while getting the best ride and the best deal. So tell all your car shopping friends. Put it on your calendar. It's next Wednesday, October 27th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And all you have to do is like the bestride.com Facebook page so you get the alerts and you don't miss it. That's bestride.com. And Tyson, I'm looking forward to that conversation as well, my friend.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, look, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding our broadcast and our topics, I'd love to talk to you. So please email me directly or find me online. I'm all over the place. You can get to me by Eliana@digitalairstrike.com. So, on behalf of Tyson Jominy and the rest of the amazing crew at JD Power, as well as my incredible coworkers over at Digital Airstrike, thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today. And I hope to see you all on another webinar or broadcast in Digital Airstrike's continuing education series. Take care, everyone.